So it's 2 panels remaining. The day is turning on. I mean, you don't see sunlight in here anyway, right? But it's 4 p.m. So stay tuned for 2 more panels. This time around, it's more about ecosystems. We have a really diverse set of speakers, I would say, or panelists and moderator, of course, as well. So please come on stage, appear. To one of you, I have to hand out my microphone. This is you. Thank you. And then the stage is yours. Big round of applause, please.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Test. Oh, okay. Alrighty. Welcome to this multi-chain panel, or to our multi-chain panel on this insanely cool stage. Before we get into the nitty-gritties and the discussion, I would like to start out with a huge thank you to the TUM Blockchain Club for bringing us all together, for all the great work you do for the blockchain ecosystem or ecosystems here in Munich and way beyond. I have the honor to work with some of you on a daily basis, and let me tell you, the future sure looks bright for the blockchain ecosystems from a talent layer. But we're not here today to talk about the TUM Blockchain Club, are we? We're here today to talk about the admittedly somewhat inflammatory worded topic of ecosystem fragmentation. What does the future of multi-chain look like? And I'm super stoked that I get to address this panel, or this question, with this amazing panel. It already begs some questions in it, like, are we even fragmented? Or what the hell is multi-chain after all? And I think since we have such a cool panel with Yvonne-Anne from Definity, Kostas from Sui, Kian from Polkadot, and last but not least, Evgeni from Wormhole, the panel in and of itself is quite multi-chain already and perfectly suited to address this. And I would like to open up with a short set of questions to each and every one of you, maybe in a round robin style, so that the audience actually knows whom they're dealing with today, and then that we can get a lively discussion going. I would ask some questions, but I invite you all to ask follow-up questions or divert into a discussion. And then if we have enough time, I would like to open up for a quick Q&A. I cannot see anyone due to this light, but that's fine. So if you have a question at the end, just shout, and I think the folks from the TUM Blockchain Club will address you. But maybe, Evgeni, due to proximity, maybe we'll start out with you. Who are you? What's your role at the project? And maybe a brief elevator pitch of the project that you're with. And for the fun of it, maybe you can finish off strong with a small fun fact about yourself and or the project that you work with.
Sure. Does it work? Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm Evgeni. I do developer relations at the Wormhole Foundation. Short elevator pitch of Wormhole is that Wormhole is a 100% open source and permissionless suite of products that enable builders to build any kind of product in a multi-chain way, meaning that you can develop products that are not isolated or not limited to one ecosystem, but can be used across multiple blockchain networks.
Cool. Then we just go around robin style, and then...
We need the fun part.
Oh yeah, the fun fact. Oh yeah, good call. Yeah. Way to throw him under the bus. Yeah.
Need time to think?
Yeah, I need a bit of time.
We get back to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, my name is Kian. I've been working for Parity Technologies for about 6 years now and contributing to Polkadot. I've done a range of things, starting from like 6 years ago. I didn't know much about blockchain, so I started, I think, doing whatever came at my way. These days, I'm trying to do more education, and after 6 years, you learn things and you can talk about them better. What is Polkadot? Polkadot is a scalable blockchain platform for launching, for coordinating a multi-chain environment. I think it's fair to say Polkadot and Cosmos were the first generation of teams that tried the multi-chain idea, and we are still in that realm. I have further thoughts on that. I think when we get to the multi-chain discussion. And a fun fact: I'm going to O2 Surfdown after this. It's the first time I'm going to a wave pool, so I'm looking forward to that.
Nice one.
Yes.
Cool. My name is Yvonne-Anne. Can you hear me?
I can. I don't know if the audience can.
Yeah, let do that. Yeah, my name is Yvonne-Anne. I'm a director of research at Dfinity, the foundation that works for the Internet Computer. And for those of you who don't know the Internet Computer, we want to reinvent compute and to make it possible to build applications fully on-chain so that everything can benefit from the advantages that blockchain technology can bring. And a fun fact about myself, I'm not going to go surfing, but I really like trying out crazy things on the stand-up paddleboard, and right now I'm practicing headstands, but usually I do drink quite a lot of water.
Amazing, thank you.
Now you have to talk about water sports as well. So.
Doesn't work.
No?
No.
We can share this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, great to be here. I had a very short flight, by the way, from Dubai to here and then back to Dubai, so I'm more flying than staying in a place. I'm Kostas. I used to work at Facebook. Even before that, I was very lucky to work with one of the first developers of Satoshi, Mike Harn. Some people in the BTC world probably know him, Bitcoin J. This actually brought me to the space. I'm a cryptographer by profession. I happened to have finished in 2010. As you can imagine, like BTC was pretty much at the very beginning. I had a lot of Bitcoins back then that I was playing. I didn't buy pizza, but I just throw them away, and as a researcher, trying to figure out where they will be in the future. But it's not in my pocket. Now I'm one of the co-founders of Mysten Labs that we created SUI. I'm leading the cryptography team. I'm the chief cryptographer. We have a small team of 7-8 people there. I'm doing a lot of DGen stuff with cryptography, zero knowledge proofs, multi-party computations, all of the cool stuff that you probably see. For the project itself, as you can imagine, myself coming from Facebook and all of my other co-founders, we wanted to solve the problem for the mass population. We tried to focus on at least 3 elements. SUI is the name of the blockchain, and we also have for storage Walrus that is coming. But the whole idea was you have to invest on a new language, and we created Move, so it will compete with Solidity and all of the other languages, learning from the problems of the previous world. New, faster consensus, and definitely on my space at least, novel cryptography. So at the moment we are one of the most performing blockchains regarding TPS, and we have some cool features that we believe are going to reshape the world. It's very interesting here because I will personally advocate for no fragmentation. Let's see how it goes. Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. Good to have you on.
Fun part, just to close here, my biggest battle was not research and all of this stuff. It was convincing my wife to name our son Cryptos, and now I have someone, like my 6-year-old, his name is Cryptos.
Wow, good to have you. That's a hard fun fact to beat, but you can give it a go if you want.
I think since we stick with sports, I think the fun fact that people don't think about myself is that I do salsa quite a lot.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Cool. Wow, very sportive, active, very knowledgeable panel. Maybe to quickly round up, my name is Robert. I work for Staking Facilities, and we are infrastructure provider, and we actually do or did run nodes for all of your networks. So I'm really happy that I get to talk to you. And enough with the intros. I would like to get to it. But before we, get into a discussion, maybe a quick definition of multi-chain, because maybe it's a word that's been thrown around a lot. But maybe Evgeni, given your background at Wormhole, you could give us a quick introduction or definition, more so what multi-chain is, and maybe if there are potential maxis in the room, why there is even a need for more than one almighty chain.
Yeah, sure, happy to do that. So I would define multi-chain as an ecosystem, basically, which supports multiple networks at the same time. So instead of relying on one dominant network, it's like collaboration between multiple isolated ones. The second question was towards the maxis, why we need multi-chain at all, right? So I would say that right now most chains have their own strength and weaknesses. So I see a future where users will just use different chains for their different use cases. For example, I know that SUI is launching It's focusing a lot on games, right? So there's a new console coming up, or on ZK technology, which is like one strength. There is supposedly the most secure chain, Ethereum, that people can use. So I feel like multi-chain is just going to be needed because there's going to be way more specialization on each ecosystem on like specific areas that then users can profit from in the most seamless way, hopefully.
Perfect. Textbook definition. If there's no one wants to add anything, I would get into it. Okay, perfect. Now we know what multi-chain is and what I think we can work with this. But before we go multi-chain, I would like to go single chain, and we have quite a stacked panel. If we zoom in, we have Sui, we have Dfinity, we have Polkadot, and this morning, each of you gave pretty interesting talks about super cool pieces of technology and innovations. And I would like to, if a chain fusion, CK logins, jam, or, different types of rollups. And I would like to maybe unpack these one after another. And maybe see where we all can meet in the middle or come together or not. That would also be a possible outcome. Maybe Yvonne-Anne, to start with you, chain fusion. What's the TLDR of it? What's the gist of it for everyone who maybe was not here this morning? And maybe also in the light of chain fusion, how would chains make sure that they don't become obsolete in the way of it? Because being in Munich, big OEMs, super big down south here in Bavaria. Way back, they had to draw an analogy from the normie world. They were scared when different other OEMs came around. They were scared to become sole hardware providers, whereas others would take the software and data lead. Would you say that there's maybe similarities in the blockchain world now with things like chain fusion, or is it quite the opposite?
I think can you hear me? Well, I'll use that. I think it's quite the opposite, but let me first talk a bit about chain fusion. So basically, as a user, the whole fragmentation that we have is a nightmare. I don't want to have to deal with different passwords and seed phrases everywhere and different apps and not sure what to trust and what not. I want to have a seamless experience where everything is served on-chain. But as Evgeni said, there are different chains with different strengths. And chain fusion should let us use all of them together and really benefit from the potential and release all the energy that comes from these different chains together. And how we do that? It's basically allow smart contracts to be able to sign transactions from other chains. That's part number one. And part number two, interact with other chains directly, without intermediaries, no bridges, no oracles, do everything directly. So these are the two principles that chain fusion stands for. Threshold signing for other chains and direct communication. Now, with respect to the second question, how can you make sure that your project doesn't become obsolete? And I think there's a very simple answer. You need to solve a user's problem. What exactly that is doesn't matter much, but you really need to bring some benefit. And then if you see that your users' requirements change, you need to adapt to them. And in my opinion, that's the way to make sure that you stay relevant. And that is not special for multi-chain, but in general.
So to all the builders, go where the users are? Yes. Cool. Kostas, you talked extensively about CK logins, which kind of rang the bell, or I had this chain abstraction, so hot right now, by the way, topic in my mind. What is it? Could you briefly explain maybe CK logins and also, like similar like we just heard, a TLDR of it, and also is this an innovation that is contained to the SUI network, and maybe the overall Move ecosystem, or is it also something that could be used in different ecosystems or could spur innovation elsewhere?
Yeah, great questions. Actually, I will move along the same lines, right, with my colleague here. The whole idea is the user itself, and imagine us, like all of the 5 founders coming from Facebook. We know what is the average Instagram user and the average WhatsApp user, and we know that people cannot remember passwords. They cannot remember like things that need to be secure and all of this stuff. What we decided to solve We were working on this even like since 2018 or something. We haven't found a solution back then. And this was because the technology was not there. But then we realized there is a sort-like thing that we can use from people being familiar with, which is logging in with Google, Facebook, Apple, and how with that they can have an account on the blockchain without passwords anymore. And there is a way, there is some technology called zero-knowledge proofs. So we get the response from Google, we add some randomizers there, so Google doesn't know the addresses of the user. And then eventually, for the first time, we had invisible wallets without requiring third parties at all. Like, everybody can use it. Back to the other question, if you have a system, which is a protocol now, it's not like a particular benefit that only permissioned wallets should have. This means that multiple wallets, at least in the SUI ecosystem, can use it. At the moment, like other Move products also are getting used to the ZK login opportunity. So you completely hide it. And you mentioned games and all of this stuff about, at the very beginning, actually you, Evgeni, about the SUI being suitable for games. It is because you have high speed. And then you can enable onboarding for the masses in like 1-2 seconds without remembering password. And an extra benefit, you forget your password, you go to your Google, and then you recover it. Many people don't know that the mnemonics cannot be recovered if you don't remember them, right? They expect that they go back to their email, oh, I forgot my password, I need to get it recovered. So we solved this problem, and by solving this problem, we realized it's the most used applications of ZK zero knowledge in general in the world. And this changed everything. Imagine all of the ZK across the world, all of them together. ZK login has more users, like millions every day, just because it's on the authentication. Right? It's not for all apps, and we're talking about like the fragmentation here. However, this fosters generally the innovation, and I'm expecting to see many things happening with new crypto, like zero knowledge, MPC, and FHC. That's the 3 technologies in cryptography now, that we will see coming again and again. So it will never stop. And if you ask me the same question, will you stop to ZK login? No, you don't stop to ZK login, because the requirement for login will be again and again important.
Oh, that sounds promising. Anything, if you want to add anything, just holler, yeah? Kian, then maybe moving to you. You also gave a really interesting talk about, I think you framed it as blockchain scaling and holistic approach, and you talked about, different finality assumptions. So maybe you could also, I think you finished strong with cyclical rollups and the Polkadot Jam. Maybe you can shed some light on that, what it is, and also similar to the others, how this contributes to a multi-chain world, or is it rather a substrate-contained somewhat innovation?
Yeah, everything happening in Polkadot is, am I audible? Or I think this thing is off. Everything we do in Polkadot is one way or another multi-chain because of its definition and what is the scaling approach there. So a TLDR of what I talked about in the morning, over the last 5 years, if I look back at what has been achieved in Polkadot, is a sharded blockchain that achieves execution sharding while sharing the economic security of this L1, be it the Polkadot relay chain among them. And we kind of acknowledge that, okay, this is a very nice primitive. Now let's move it, let's make it more and more flexible. And this is happening across various initiatives across Polkadot. And the one that I focused on more than the others in my talk was actually less about Polkadot itself, or like Polkadot 2.0, was more about the next generation of Polkadot, which is a few years ahead of us. It's now in the specking phase. It's called Polkadot Jam. And it tackles a problem that we have, as sort of pioneers of multi-chain, have identified. I think it was mentioned earlier as well, that multi-chain is good, but not good for the just sake of multi-chain. It brings with it a number of complexities. Users hate it. We also don't recognize enough that in a proof-of-stake world, multi-chain inevitably means more economic security shared among these chains. Unless if you pull a trick like Polkadot relay chain, but that also has its limitations, and you cannot have infinite chains and so on. And this brings me finally to Jam. So Jam is a approach to get the best out of Polkadot, which is the sharded blockchain, but do everything it can do to remove these boundaries of persistent fragmentation. As in, you have these 10 let's call them L2s or separate blockchains, and they're always separate. If one of them wants to talk to the other, there's always this bridge that has to be traversed. And Jam is trying to fuse these together through a number of tricks and techniques that you can go to a website called greypaper.org to read about it. It's about 80 pages only, but it takes cannot cover it here. But yeah, it seems achievable, and this is why also in the talk in the morning I phrased it as, you know, protocol and label aside, I think for blockchain scalability, it is a new paradigm, and I think that's interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So as if this wasn't already enough innovation for one panel, Evgeni, you had a really cool workshop on native multi-chain tokens, and now every one of you has been cooking, every ecosystem has been cooking. Would you say, I mean, your perspective is quite interesting because Wormhole per definition is kind of multi-chain. Would you say that everyone's, you know, cooking on their own, or is there synergies coming? And how would you say that your own innovation, like native multi-chain tokens, fit into the mix?
Great question, thank you. I guess it's kind of both. On the one side, we do see a lot more fragmentation than ever. I think there is more than 80 layer 2 chains on Ethereum right now, and then not even speaking about all the other non-EVM chains. So there is definitely as much fragmentation on this side as we have ever had before. But on the other side, as you've mentioned, we developed this native token transfer framework, which tries to make it as seamless as possible to transfer tokens between any kind of chain. So right now, Wormhole is on 6 runtimes. So Solana, Ethereum, Move, Cosmos, Polkadot, and Near. And the idea is that in the future, we could connect as many runtimes as possible in a seamless way, and at least make it reduce the way fragmentation feels for the user to an extent that it's not as hard to do any kind of transfers between chains like it is for many use cases right now. So I guess it's kind of both. As I said, we do see a lot of chains, but we do find new ways how to connect chains and how to make building products less dependent on one ecosystem.
So you're kind of the friendship layer across all these different ecosystems. Thank you for doing that. That's great. So we talked a lot multi-chain from a user's perspective, but maybe also from infrastructure providers. And I'm not only speaking of staking facilities, running validator nodes, but I would also say block explorers, wallets are somewhat part of the infrastructure. What's their role in this multi-chain world? I think I've asked you this question this morning already. Do we all have to work together? Obviously, but all the validator sets, how do you make sure that, you cannot really control that, because it's the beauty of this permissionless systems, but how do you make sure that they tag along, that that chain fusion works because the nodes already supported, or you hinted in your talk that the validators have to somewhat cross-reference with Google. How do you make sure of that? And Kostas, maybe you can start, but I would like the others to chime in as well.
Yeah, something, by the way, which is interesting, we realize even in the whole ecosystem, some providers of nodes in Sui, they're also providers in other blockchains. This is useful. This is useful because they also have analytics. They know how its chain is performing. Also, they can help probably the bridges and other people. Oh, now we have someone who knows about both systems. And they get experience when a new blockchain appears. Now they already have from EVM, Move, and Near, and all of the rest. They do have the experience. It's by far easier for them. So in that sense, if you ask me, the multi-chain makes some sense because it fosters innovation and it fosters getting knowledge from everybody and going as a convergent evolution always to something better. Now the validators themselves lately also started to have in some projects, including us, to have some Oracle either support or being able to support cryptography that will help the bridges and all of the other protocols to be able to bridge stuff between the blockchains. So as we can see, something at least in my personal field, more and more crypto primitives from one chain is moving to the other. And then gradually, if they're all compatible, it's by far easier for you to do your work, compared to us again and again innovating, and then you cannot keep up. So this is, in my opinion, it's a good thing. Validators are evolving. Nodes that are running validators are getting in multiple like views of different spaces. And the crypto itself is starting to have a convergent evolution into something that literally works.
Maybe Yvonne, and you can comment on that, because that's one criticism that newer kind of blockchains like Sui, Solana sometimes get from the OG blockchains like Ethereum, obviously, but also Polkadot, that it's the nodes are so beefy that only institutionals or big companies can run them. How would you, like, it's sometimes hard to marry that with the idea of total decentralization. I can spin up a node whenever I want to. How would you, is there a sweet spot, and if so, where is it, and how would you argue with those kind of people?
In my opinion, there are just many different use cases with many different requirements. And depending on what you want to do, how valuable the assets are that you want to make sure that you run tamper-proof computation on, depending on that, you may favor one flavor of permissionless or permissioned blockchains versus others. So that's also why I think multi-chain initiatives are super important, because I don't think there's just one chain that is perfect for everything. But we do need to really combine our strengths. And for some people, it's important that they can run things efficiently. For example, thanks to things like the deterministic decentralization that we use for the internet computer, where it's known where the nodes are, who they belong to, which ISPs are being used. On the other hand, for other applications, it may be super important that anyone can bring them up, and you don't know all these. So I don't think there's just one sweet spot, but every application needs to find out what is the right choice.
Perfect. So it's not a winner-take-all scenario. Would you like to comment on that, or?
Yeah, I would. I do agree that the properties that we can get from distributed ledger technologies broadly are a spectrum. And what are those properties? I think the two main ones are verifiable computation and auditable history. And they're actually kind of disjoint. We use this data structure called blockchain to get the auditable history, and then we use techniques like cryptoeconomics or zero-knowledge proofs to verify that some computation happened correctly. I think on the auditable history, there's little compromise made generally. Everyone, even the consortium blockchains, like the completely permissioned ones, they very often use the data structure called blockchain, and they enjoy the fact that, okay, the whole history is public and can be verified. On the verifiability, I cannot disagree that it's a spectrum. I do want to point out, though, that if we use sometimes I wonder if we have pivoted toward this it's a spectrum narrative because we couldn't make something better. I think it's a true question to ask. And if the answer to it is by any chance yes, I think we should be concerned, because it's a time bomb. It's a time bomb until a Black Swan event where we realize this was a mistake. So I think we should eagerly consider blockchains, approaches, systems that are less secure, but probably not for our foundations. I think we would like to, in my opinion, we would like to have very strong foundations with optionally weaker systems that are cheaper, faster, and so on top of them. But again, truth be told, I sometimes look to my left and right and see the opposite.
Not literally, of course, on this panel, but yeah.
I think literally.
Yeah, maybe to, if we come towards the Q&A, to maybe end with a more positive notes and also round robin style. Are there any technical developments that are maybe not so public as of now, or where you think, okay, they aren't being talked about enough that make you bullish either on your own ecosystem, but I mean in general more the Web3 space? I mean, we talked about a bunch of innovations already, but is there anything where you would say, okay, this is going to make a difference when we talk here next year again? Or also I assume there's many great builders in the audience where you say, okay, tackle this and we're good to go. I would just start out with Evgeni and then we can pass the mic.
Sure, thanks. I'm super excited about our newest product called MultiGov, which is basically, it's going to enable governance from multiple ecosystems again. So right now, governance is usually limited to one chain, so people can only vote from one chain, and multi-gov is going to enable basically governance to be able to happen from multiple chains at the same time. So it's hopefully going to, again, make the experience more seamless and bring in more people that can participate in governance. So we just announced it publicly, I think, a couple of days ago, and it's going to launch, I think, next month, or like maybe in 2 months. So very excited about that.
In the last Web3 Summit, there was an announcement that I felt very interested in to tackle the age-old example of like one Sybil problem in blockchain space. There have been attempts on this, and I think it's one of those foundational things that until we solve, a lot of things are going to be very difficult to tackle. And once it's solved, again with varying degrees or with varying properties, it would be a massive, massive step forward. So. Yeah, I mean, the details of it would be too much, but I'm very excited about this, and I think the ability for the blockchain to bridge any real-world information into it, then through as a secondary artifact of this such personhood systems, like as in it can rely on some humans, and that can, as in. The blockchain can now finally identify that some account is actually a human and can gather some reputation that, okay, this human is actually is credible on, I don't know, deciding whether this item exists in the real world or being the oracle of that thing. I think we can tackle the oracle problem in a very different way than how we're doing it nowadays, and that would be interesting to see.
I couldn't agree more that the proof of personhood is super important, and we, as you said, we are starting to see attempts towards that. Some of them also on the internet computer, and actually, what I think is super exciting is that they are using AI techniques to achieve that. And of course, in any panel, you need to do some buzzword bingo. So here I brought up the AI buzzword. Sorry for those of you who've heard it too much already, but I'm excited about it. My personhood has been verified. Yeah, so I think developments there also then really achieving more seamless interactions between blockchains will help with more adoption, also outside our bubble, especially together with the efforts that make logging in easier. I think this is crucial. Looking at how fast things have been evolving in the past, I'm actually confident that next year we'll all be saying, wow, we've achieved a lot.
Amazing. I'm in the research part, as you know, so we have at least 10, 15 things to mention here, but I will mention the top 3 in my mind. One of them is we're launching Walrus, which is a storage network, a blockchain storage network, because you know blockchains at the moment are the CPU and the RAM probably of the execution, but you cannot have large data there. You have to use IPFS, you have to use other things. But even them are not connected necessarily with a very fast consensus where they can support large data, but at the same time with high speed. Right, because there is AI, as we mentioned. How do you put the models there and them having been interacted with some smart contract on the blockchain? So we're working on this. Walrus, I believe, will be like the fragmentation on the storage is not like very big. It's like 4 or 5 networks. And at the same time, having one with a very, very fast consensus probably will help. The second one is, in my opinion, in the next year or 2, I believe all of the crypto operations, maybe overstating here, might be irrelevant for the performance of the blockchain. They will not affect TPS. There are a few ways, either with good cryptography or with some tricks to decentralize the decentralized network. That's the hint. I cannot go very, very far on this. That crypto will cost almost 0. Even for us, ZK login, it doesn't cost the user more than an EDDSA signature. It's literally the same. You don't want to penalize user because they're using a better method to authenticate, right? Even with multi-sig and all of this stuff. Does Google charge you more because you have a longer password? No, right? But you want to have a longer password. And the third one is we built an audit tool. It's using AI, but it can be used by multiple blockchains. And this helps to reduce the cost to go live, because typically you have to go to auditors. There is a huge line with these auditors. How do you find your spot to be able to be treated properly? And now with AI, we found many bugs outside our ecosystem, because we also protect the ecosystem in general, not only SUI, because there is bridging, there are other things happening. In my opinion, decentralized audit, in the sense that some automation will happen, is super important in a fragmented system. This will be a thing that we have to find a good solution for, and we're working on this.
Oh, guys, you heard it here first. If I wasn't bullish already, I would be for sure now. And before we open up to the Q&A by the audience, big thank you from my side for building, for cooking, and also for collaborating in such a nice way. I think I can feel that there is friendliness between ecosystems. I mean, everyone's pushing their own boundaries, but I also think that you guys grow the overall pie, and that is highly appreciated from at least the infra provider side. So thank you. And now I would encourage the audience, which I cannot clearly see, to ask any questions, because this is a great opportunity. There is some serious brain power on the stage, and you can pick those brains. So if there are any questions, now would be a great time. Yeah. I guess there are no questions. Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you. At least I've seen an arm, or I hallucinated. Oh.
You can ask one.
Ah, there's. I can also ask questions, yeah? It also works.
So for the multi-chains or future that we're seeing, where you have different apps on different chains and users need to interact with them, what do you think this looks like? Do you think the chains will try to have a brand and the apps on them are sort of branded with that chain, what we see sort of today? Or do you think this will sort of disappear over time as we have better abstractions and users get to interact more seamlessly? Will it feel like it doesn't matter, like you're just visiting different websites, but it doesn't really matter which chain you're on?
Great question.
I have a very strong opinion there that for the user, it shouldn't matter at all on which chain something runs. Ideally, they don't even notice that something is run on chain. And also, storage and compute with the right algorithmic and algorithmic tools and system engineering, I think we can do a lot more today already than many people believe.
I agree.
You nailed it.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, otherwise I have some, maybe. No. Okay, one question I actually have is, so you argue about multi-chain, right? So things being interoperable, people collaborating. So why should people do that, like from a business incentive point of view? Like open up to other chains, be open to transfer assets between chains and stuff like that. So what is the incentive of a company to kind of allow outflows, for instance, of assets to another environment, which obviously also decreases their value locked or something like that, right? So different metrics.
I think that most of the time companies profit from it. For example, if you look at the ecosystems right now, most of the liquidity is on Ethereum. Most of the users are on Solana right now. Maybe the coolest account abstraction is on SUI. So it's not like that protocols are giving away some kind of fragmentation. If the transfer between those ecosystems is seamless enough, then they can just profit from all the strengths from all ecosystems without losing any kind of users or outflows, in my opinion.
Okay, so building on account abstraction, do you see something that apps are natively building multi-chain? So there's like a D app that works across chain to make things happen, or?
Absolutely. I feel like once we have something like ZK login that works for, let's say, Solana and all EVM, why shouldn't we have one login where you can use all the chains together and just use the strengths of them however you want to?
Okay, sounds reasonable. Maybe that inspired more questions, or it didn't? Nope. Sorry for that. What's the best way to reach you people post-conference, or maybe even tonight over a beer or something? Any hints on that?
Tonight a little bit works. Tonight, like Kostas said, but I think Twitter. I think we all have a Twitter, Telegram, but I think usually start out with Twitter and then take it from there, at least from the staking facilities side.
And there's a workshop tomorrow from Dfinity that teaches you how to build dApps on the internet computer that interact with Ethereum. So you're of course also welcome to join that or see us at our booth.
Awesome. And even your microphone worked on that one, right? Amazing. Final chance for a question?
We don't have a workshop, but we do have a breakfast for all of the people who wants to learn about SUI.
That is very recommendable. Yeah, with that, thanks for appearing on our panel. Huge round of applause, please, and you get your beer mugs, of course.
Thank you.